climate action. And it all happens one cooking pot at a time, using something you literally have in your pocket right now. So, picture this. You get this message on your phone. And no, it's not a reward for online shopping or swiping your credit card. It's for buying cooking gas? I know, it sounds a little wild, right? Almost too good to be true. But I'm telling you, this is a real message from a real working system. So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth can buying cooking gas actually make you money? It just feels backward. Well, stick with me, because in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how it's possible. We're going to connect the dots between a simple chat message and the massive global carbon market. Okay, so to get how this all works, we've got to look at the engine behind that text message. It's got a bit of a technical name, the Virtual Cylinder Recirculation Model, or let's just call it VCRM for short. Think of it as this super clever, digitized system that's cheap to run and totally verifiable. And here's the really brilliant part. The genius of this thing isn't some fancy, complicated app you have to go download and learn how to use. Nope, it's built right on top of WhatsApp. It literally meets people where they already are, using an app they use every single day to talk to friends and family. That means no new hardware to buy, no crazy learning curve. It just works. All right, so you might be wondering, how do I get in on this? Well, it all kicks off with a super simple chat. A conversation that basically transforms a regular person into a trusted, verifiable piece of the climate action puzzle. I mean, it literally starts with you sending the word hi. That's it. From there, a chatbot just talks to you. It guides you through a couple of super quick steps. You say, yep, I'm in, give it some basic info like your name and where you are, and then you pick the kind of fuel you're using. The whole thing feels like you're just texting a friend. It's so easy. And then, bam, this is where the magic happens. After just a few messages, the system gives you your very own unique virtual cylinder ID. And this isn't just a bunch of random letters and numbers. Think of it as your personal digital key. It's the thing that connects what you do in the real world, like buying gas, to a secure digital record. And get this, that digital ID starts paying off right away. It's not just for keeping track of things. It literally unlocks real-world benefits. We're talking cheaper fuel, the ability to get credit, bonuses for telling your friends, and, of course, that awesome carbon credit cashback we saw earlier. I mean, with all that, why wouldn't you sign up? It's a total no-brainer. Okay, so the front end, what you see as a user, is super simple. But I know what you're thinking. How does the system really know the data is legit, right? Well, this is where we pop the hood and see how the engine works. Because every single message, every single interaction is a vital clue in a much bigger investigation. So, when a user sends a quick message to the chatbot, something as simple as just bought gas or cooked twice today, that one little action sets off a whole chain reaction of data validation. That text message, it's like the very first domino to fall in this really clever, sophisticated verification process. And this is what makes the system so strong. It's not just taking your word for it. It's way smarter than that. It actually checks 3 different layers of data against each other. First, there's what you, the user, report. Second, there's the data from the vendor you bought the fuel from. And third, and this is super cool, where it's available, it pulls data directly from an...
Good afternoon once again, everyone. My name is Oriofelua Ajibade. Thank you for joining today's session. We're very happy and excited to have everyone here with us. We understand that currently the chat box is disabled. You can drop your information in the Q&A section while we work on correcting that in the meantime. So you can drop your name and the organization you're joining from in the Q&A section. Thank you. We're very delighted to know who is participating with us today. And as a reminder, you can share the link with your friends and your colleagues so they also benefit from this session. So to formally open this webinar, it's my honor to invite the Managing Director of FuelTree, Chief Dr. Bekeme Oluola, to deliver the welcome address. Thank you.
Thanks, Oriofe. Good afternoon, everyone. It's actually an absolute pleasure to be organizing, I believe, our first webinar for the year. And today we're going to focus on how Nigeria's carbon framework can catalyze the clean cooking revolution. I mean, we've had the act since 2021 for climate, and now we actually have an approved carbon framework, and I think that it's time to catalyze conversations around this. So on behalf of FuelTree, I warmly welcome everyone, our moderators, or our moderator, distinguished speakers, partners, stakeholders, and every participant joining us from different locations. We had over 250 people register. So thank you for being a part of this conversation. FuelTree is an energy solutions company, right? And our core product is the VCRM, the virtual cylinder recirculation model, which is a neutral digital infrastructure and carbon data platform that tracks LPG cylinder assets, usage and transactions across households and SMEs using a combination of transactional workflows, selective telemetry, and AI assisted analytics. What we do is that through that, we aggregate last mile LPG activity data across households and SMEs into this single platform, making usage visible, verifiable, and manageable. We don't own projects. We facilitate projects basically, and as we know, and our future really, we believe that the future of clean cooking in Nigeria depends not only on ambitions but on the systems that need to make that happen. That's why we have the infrastructure that we do, and that's why we have the partnerships that we do and accountability structures that can facilitate the explosion of this market. It can turn ambition into measurable progress. So clean cooking, as we know, is closely linked to health and wellness. And as a woman, I'm particularly vested in this because women tend to bear the burden a lot. With issues around pneumonia, other breathing issues, child mortality rates impacted, all of this linked to climate, as well as energy access. If it's firewood, it's women who go to the farms to carry this heavy burden. And also there's the matter of economic opportunity. And so for many households, this is a practical everyday issue with real implications for well-being and quality of life. And for progress to happen at scale, we really believe that the sector must be supported by credible data, enabling policy, which we see evolving to a benefit, and strong implementation pathways and financing models that reward impact. When I think about the policy aspect, I think about Elon Musk, right? And how he makes a significant profit from carbon credits, specifically regulatory credits, by manufacturing and selling electric vehicles, which we all know him for the Tesla. Because Tesla exclusively produces zero emission vehicles, government regulations in regions like the United States and Europe actually reward that. And they grant them credits, which they sell for massive high margin profit to traditional automakers to meet emission targets. So clean cooking definitely is multifaceted in terms of adding value, and policy intervention is very necessary for us to have it be more structured and be more impactful. And this is why Nigeria's carbon framework matters. A credible and well-functioning carbon market can help unlock tremendous capital. We've heard about the billions of dollars available to be unlocked annually and through clean financing opportunities, and this can help strengthen confidence in climate interventions and support solutions that reach more people. To achieve this, I think that we must pay close attention to integrity, measurement, and the systems that make climate action transparent and financeable. And that's the thinking behind our work and this webinar, which we hope we're able to facilitate the conversation between players, many of you from development institutions, many of you from businesses who facilitate clean cooking, and from communities as well. We're all working together on building practical systems that support this accountability, transparency, and measurable climate outcomes in Nigeria and across Africa. And so we're honored to have our esteemed panel with us today, who will be introduced very shortly. And I'm pretty confident that this conversation will deepen the opportunity before us, understanding, and the work realized, the work required to realize it. I'm also very hopeful every time that we have a meeting such as this that we're able to facilitate networking and partnerships. This is something that we have done through different, or I have done through different iterations of the businesses that I've overseen. It's very important that we're pursuing SDG 12, which is around partnerships, because partnerships with the right people, with the same values, and all of that is very important to facilitate growth at scale. So it's my pleasure to welcome you again and to hand you over to the moderator to begin today's session. Thank you so very much.
Thank you once again, Dr. Bekeme. It is always a privilege to hear from our managing director. And like she has mentioned and highlighted the importance of clean cooking, as she said in her welcome address, it is linked to health and wellness, and there's so much progress that has to be made. And one way is through credible data. Clean cooking, like she said, is multifaceted, and from it, we can unlock capital. These and many more are what we're going to discuss in today's session. And without further ado, I will be introducing today's moderator, Mr. Abiodun Olaore. I'm going to read his profile quickly and then we'll go into today's session. Mr. Abiodun Olaore is the Managing Director for West Africa at EnviroFit International, with experience across strategy, business operations, market development, and carbon-linked clean cooking solutions. He currently leads the company's work in West Africa, including sales expansion, manufacturing, distribution development, and carbon projects for cook stoves. He's particularly passionate about unlocking opportunities in undeserved markets and helping organizations build practical strategies for growth. And he will be moderating today's session. Thank you once again for joining, and I wish everyone an insightful session as I hand over to Mr. Olaore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oriofe. And I stand on the existing protocol, and we'll go into this session fully. This afternoon, we'll be starting up with the second session due to emergency that we needed to take this first. So we're starting up with the session titled The Social and Economic Impact of Clean Cooking in Nigeria. And joining me on this session, we have Ebele Sophia Imite Uka. And I also have Ben Odongo. And then I also have Johnson Jayola. So let me quickly introduce each of the speakers. And I'll start with Ebele Sophia. Ebele Sophia is the regional coordinator at the Climate Parliament and a senior energy and climate policy expert with experience across clean cooking, carbon markets, energy access, and climate finance in Africa. She works with government, development partners, and private sector actors to strengthen the policy and market frameworks needed to support inclusive clean energy transition. Our work focuses on linking policy, finance, and implementation in ways that expand access, strengthen equity, and support long-term sustainability. She'll be leading today's conversation on what should define success in Nigeria's clean cooking transition beyond emission, including outcomes such as reduced household health burden, time savings, women's economic participation, deforestation reduction, and income generation. So please join me to welcome again Ebele Sophia Imite Uka. Again, I have another speaker here, Mr. Ben Odongo. He is the head of Clean Cooking Center at iClear Africa, where he leads efforts to expand access to clean cooking solutions across the continent. He has an over a decade experience in Africa's energy sector. His work spans clean cooking, energy access, climate actions, and program implementation. He brings a practical and system-focused perspective to the challenge of scaling inclusive and climate-aligned clean cooking solutions across diverse African contexts. He'll be leading today's conversation on what meaningful community benefit should look like in practice and how carbon revenues can be transparently shared or reinvested at the community level. Join me to welcome Mr. Ben Odongo. You're welcome to this session. And The last person for this session is Mr. Jayola Johnson. He's a sustainability leader and clean energy expert with over a decade of experience in environmental health, energy transition, and carbon smart development across Africa. He is the director of Fringe Integrated, where he supports clean cooking, energy adoption, and a net zero aligned practices through research, compliance, and community-based energy solutions. His work is particularly focused on expanding inclusive access to clean cooking and clean energy for underserved communities. He'll be leading today's conversation on key risks that could slow clean cooking adoption, including trust, safety perception, refill access, and price volatility, as well as the most practical ways to address these challenges at scale. Welcome again, Mr. Johnson Jayola. And so for this session, we have each speaker has 15 minutes to speak on their various topics. And I'll start with Mr. Right. So I'll start with is it Kayode? No, not Kayode. You're like here right now. Sorry. Okay, so I'll start with Mr. Johnson Jayola. Mr. Johnson Jayola, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Thank you very much. So for this session, I would like you to speak to us on the risk, on what risk could slow adoption in terms of trust, safety, perception, refill access, price volatility, and what are the most practical ways to address them at scale. So the floor is yours. 15 minutes.
All right. Thank you. Because I have 15 minutes, I'll just be going head on. I wish I had more time to speak on this very laudable topic. All protocols duly observed. In 2021, I won about $500,000 worth of computing resources. You know, Dr. Bekeme was speaking, she spoke about how data is quite important in this ideology. So the $500,000 was not in cash, it was in computing resources, which I deployed to assay data of how many Nigerians were still using firewood. All right. So I deployed the Nigerian students across the 6 geopolitical zones, and I was able to, through the help of God, come up with a data that is of high integrity, that has a strong picture of what the number or amount of people that are still using firewood in Nigeria as of 2021. And it will surprise you to know that it's quite much more than those using clean energy. I wish I had more time to give you the experience more on that. I'll just go straight now to the topic. I'll be speaking also from my experience, my field experience, and vis-a-vis the information that I have in my hand. The first risk that this ideology is going to embark with is the issue of access control. Access control. So, bulk of those who does not use clean gas, they're still using firewood. Even in 2026, they are still in the communities like the villages and the towns. So bad road is an issue, still an issue across West Africa. Maybe you go to South Africa, it's better there, okay? But do an assay, all right? Do a research. You see that many African countries are still battling with bad roads. So how do we get a highly volatile and highly inflammable clean energy or in form of gas to to these people, to these users. Okay, so good road is very pertinent, and how do we now beat around this? So I'll be mentioning the risk, which is the expected or anticipated challenge. Then immediately I will mention the control measures or the suggested solution. All right, when we get to the discussions, all right, there will be more discussions around that. Moderator, please help me. I forgot to look at the time I started. I've used how many minutes? Help me. Thank you. All right, let me just continue. So this control measure we recommend for that, for access, will be to have agents in those towns and small villages that we come with their bottles, all right, to receive some reasonable amount of this energy, this gas, right, then transport it through a more smaller medium, a van, to the very rural communities where they are still using firewood and of course which in turn affects mortality and morbidity rates in those places. It affects their health, and Dr. Bekeme spoke about that. I'll just go straight to the second risk that is to be expected. Is the risk of ignorance. The risk of ignorance. This is the ideology of this is how we do it, and how do you some of especially in Africa, those in the rural communities, they are used to the way they do things, and when you want to bring in a better and a sustainable idea to them, it's going to come in form of a revolution. And I like the topic of this webinar. You see the word revolution there, so it has to be a revolution. Okay, you have to keep letting them know the pros and the cons, all right, and what is stand to gain. Okay, so this has to be communicated to them so that they will unlearn, okay, and learn how to adopt the idea of clean cooking. So education, okay, we must organize physical, not webinar for them. We have to go on ground, put the boot on the ground, okay, meet with them, meet first with their leaders. And let me just touch a bit on that. Sequel to my experience in the field, the leaders, the kings and the chiefs, most of them have been found to be corrupt in the areas of, and I think that should be the same case across West Africa, all right, around deforestation, okay, and this wood that they deforest, okay, they sell some, they export some out of those villages or those communities, and while some are being even sold to the villagers to cook, all right. So if you are coming in, all right, to give them a better option, a more sustainable option that is going to better their health and their lives, you have to start. It will suffer if you don't go and start your own work from the chiefs and the kings. You have to meet them. So these are those that call the shots in these areas, all right. So we also have the issue of consistent supply. If we are to, the reason why I'm focusing more on the communities, not the cities, is because more users, and it may surprise you to know that we discovered about 65 Nigerians who were still using firewood even as at 2021. Yes, if you look at the numbers especially in the northern part of Nigeria, it's quite alarming. Okay, when you talk about populations and the census and numbers, the northern Nigerians, they have a high number. All right, it's only Lagos in the west that is competing with them, and we have to be sure that we'll be able to supply them consistently, because if there's a break, especially at the start, if there's a break, there will be loss of faith in the whole idea. All right, then we need to now start all over again. Okay, and lastly, so that I will allow, I have about 8 risk I would have loved to speak about, but because of the sake of time, I would just speak on investors. Okay, I discovered that one of the
You still
risks
have
that
about 8 minutes more, so you can go
oh
ahead.
awesome. Thank you. So we talk about like-minded investors. So the like-minded investors are those that will be ready to partner into this whole idea. All right, and they want to, an investor that you will tell that a bulk of our clients are in the rural community is looking at, does the rural community have the financial weight to sustain their investment? Okay, so some investors might just back out or waste the time of you, the owner of the idea. So this is the solution I'd be recommending. Carbon credit is gaining popularity in Africa. West Africa is on the face of the Europeans. The big buyers are the Europeans. The big sellers are the South Americans. But West Africa, we are gaining popularity in that market. I'm a player in that market, so I can give some experiential ideas. And for those that are participants in this webinar today, I believe that if you are smart, very well taking note of every speaker that will still even come after me, you can pick some business ideas from this webinar. All right. So we are gaining popularity. One of the selling points of this clean energy transition from dirty fuels to clean energy is carbon credit. Yeah, and the Europeans are ready to buy, but we must be able to know the details behind it. We must be able to understand what is expected of every player in that industry, because it is document driven. It is document driven. It is expertise driven. It's not so abstract, but it is very technical. All right. So
You
I
have
won't
five
go.
minutes more.
Okay,
5 minutes
thank you.
more.
Okay, so I won't go deep into that. So carbon credit is one of our marketing strategy to bring in big fishes to invest in this clean energy, to give access to those who needs it, so that the invested capital can also bring expected returns. Yeah. So another risk that I would like to talk about is, and I will just explain it. I will explain it. I do not put a subject to that. I will just explain it. And this risk is the risk of you, the investor now, the idea owner. I mean, uh, matching their competitors. We can term it competition, all right, but it's a healthy competition. And because of the terrain where you can say you want to come and sell clean. Okay, I'm currently speaking from Toronto. You want to sell clean energy in Toronto. There is a system in place. In Europe, oh, they are up there. Even North America is trying to match them. So the virgin ground for this to thrive is Africa, and there they are competitors. All right. So one of the risks is unhealthy competition. So we have healthy competition, we have unhealthy competition. And in the game of unhealthy competition, I'll be really, really practical, okay, so that we'll be able to touch the matters that we need to touch. Is you being shut out of the system in terms of even you not having access to some documentations. Yes, for example, I won't like to mention the name of countries now, all right, because of the sensitivity of the information I'm trying to give now. For example, in some nations, you need some paperwork, and because the parastatal in charge of those regulatory attendants, they know the players, the companies, the organizations. So because you're a rookie or you're just a startup, you will face some unhealthy competitions, all right, and so you will have to now come to how you need to strategize. And one of the ways you need to strategize is you have to consult, you have to meet the regulators, attend their conferences, meet them in conferences. You have to do all of this just to register your presence in this industry. Okay, so that is a control that I will put to that. Competitions, healthy competitions we also have unhealthy competition. And on this note, I would just like to round up. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joel. Even though you have about 2 minutes more, I'm sure maybe you can explore that 2 minutes maybe in the course of the question and answer session. Right. So, riding on that, I think we can move to the next speaker. This time, I'm sure Ebele Sophia Emetewuka is ready for us. And for you, the question before you is beyond carbon, beyond the emissions, what outcome should define success for Nigeria's clean cooking transition? In terms of reduced household health, but in the time savings, the women's economic participation, deforestation reduction, or income generation. So, Ebele, please, you have the floor. 15 minutes, please.
Thank Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, depending on where you're connecting from. Yes, you can just call me Sophia for short. I want to thank the organizers of this webinar, and also thank you to the moderator, my fellow panelists, participants, everyone present here. Clean cooking is a very critical topic or issue, in the country. And like you mentioned, the benefits should go beyond emissions. Yes, we know right now because of the carbon market, a lot of people are putting so much, emphasis on emission because of how it can bring in revenues for them. But beyond that, I tell people when you're trying to go into a clean cooking project, look beyond the emissions, look beyond the income. There are other tangible benefits that come from clean cooking projects in Nigeria and other African countries. First of all, the health outcomes. Growing up, I know a lot of us experience this in Africa, where you see our grandparents cooking with firewood, coal, and you go into the kitchen is all black, and you see them coughing and all that. But with clean cooking now, a lot of Nigerians are not exposed to this harmful indoor air pollution that these traditional cooking methods, expose them to. So health outcomes should be very, very, should be on the top list, because they say health is wealth. So when you have a healthy nation, you will definitely have a productive and a working nation. So the health outcomes of clean cooking is paramount. And then we go to another part where that's most times underestimated, but it's very incredibly powerful. And that's the time savings and productivity gains. Also growing up, most times you use kerosene to cook, or you use firewood to cook, or you use charcoal to cook. It takes longer time to cook, especially if you're someone that likes beans. Growing up, I love beans a lot. And I know how long it takes to cook beans using kerosene, for instance. But then when you switch to cooking gas, you find out that it cooks faster. You have enough time to undergo other activities you want to, especially for women. The time a woman will use to go fetch firewood from the bush, cut the firewood, put the things together and starts cooking, or the time she uses in using kerosene or other traditional methods of cooking, it takes time. But now we are in the modern age. You see a lot of women, they use gas to cook because they have to go to work. So clean cooking gives them advantage of time, where they can use this time to put into other productive and more income generating activities. So this is one other socioeconomic benefit of clean cooking. And then, of course, this leads us to women economic empowerment. For every sector, I think the clean cooking is one sector that has helped women economically. When a woman has more time at her disposal, she can go to school, she can learn more, she can do whatever she wants to do. And so most of our clean cooking, uh, um, clean cooking projects, one economic opportunity it presents is that women are now at the forefront of economic activities. Women can now even become distributors, partake in the whole value chain of clean cooking because they have more time to themselves. They cannot become not just active beneficiaries, but they can become active participants in the clean cooking value chain. And then we have the environmental benefits. Everyone knows how environmental friendly clean cooking is, from the stove to the fuel, gives a cleaner atmosphere, and there's not much waste. Unlike even if when you use charcoal, you still get some waste that you have to dispose. But for clean cooking, you really have waste, the issue of waste. You really have issue of emission, harmful emission into the atmosphere of the home. So this also, creates a habitable environment for um, people, families, young ones. So the environmental benefits of clean cooking should also be one thing that will motivate people to go into the cleaning sector. And then lastly, the first speaker mentioned something about access and affordability. I think that is where the clean cooking sector has a lot of challenge in overcoming. We still have issues of access, we still have issues of affordability. If you're someone that you regularly implement clean cooking projects, and maybe you go to carry out a survey. And when you ask these people, what's the major challenge to you transitioning from, let's say, kerosene or firewood to clean cooking? The first thing they say is, oh, we don't have a clean cook where we can buy, let's say, LPG close to around us. We have to travel far distance, carrying heavy cylinders. So the issue of access should be addressed, and then affordability. Right now, we know LPG costs about 1,400 per kg. We see this fluctuation in price of LPG, which will not enable the industry grow. We need a stabilized finance pricing system. We need stabilized financing mechanisms for the cook stoves, for the fuel, to make adoption really realistic for low-income households. So the access, the affordability, I think should be on our priority in terms of trying to improve the adaptation and adoption of clean cooking across Nigeria. And then I want to emphasize what clean cooking does to us. Yes, men might not really understand the impact or the magnitude of what clean cooking does to a home, because majorly they are not in that part per se. Women are more in the kitchen. Women understand the challenges that come with cooking. And so clean cooking provides dignity and quality for life women generally. And when a woman is happy, when a woman is productive, it reflects also not just in the family, in the lives of the husband, and the children, and the society overall. It reduces stress for the woman. Inconvenience is removed. So it makes the household safer. So these are things that should be considered for as benefits for clean cooking, outcomes for clean cooking, success stories for clean cooking, not just, we're getting emission reductions from it, we can now be involved in international carbon market trades and all that. But beyond that, let's look at other little things, that help improve the lives and the quality of life for not just houses, but particularly for women, because these are the active participants in this industry. And now come to see that the major players in this industry, in the clean cooking sector, the major users, the major beneficiaries should be more involved, in decision making. For instance, now we are having a clean cooking panel. We should even have more of women here, because they are the ones actively using this thing. So we need more women empowered in the knowledge of clean cooking, how they can be empowered, how they can be decision makers, how they can be full players in the LPG value chain. So we should also bring in the gender sensitivity. I believe that if they are beneficiaries, if the women are beneficiaries, they should be active participants in the discussions that we have. They will bring a different perspective that even the other the men would not necessarily see, because they are the ones mostly affected and impacted by the outcomes of clean cooking. So for me, success is multi-dimensional. It comes from the income, where we have income from clean cooking sector, but most especially we have healthier families, we have empowered women, we have protected environments, and we have economically active communities. And lastly, we should have sustained affordable access to clean cooking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man. That was quite timely, even though you still have about 6 minutes more. But I appreciate the fact that you did this within the time frame. So we move to the next speaker, in the person of Ben Odongo. So Ben, it's nice to catch up with you again, see you again for the second time in 1 week. Right. So for you, the question to you is, what does meaningful community benefits looks like in practice? And how should carbon revenue be transparently shared or invested at community level? The floor is yours, Ben.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question, and I hope I'm very audible. Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those of you that are still in the morning. My name is Ben Odongo, and I'm joining you today actually from Kampala, Uganda. I spent last week in West Africa, so had opportunity to meet Mr. Olare in one of the factories of EnviroFit, but also to see other, clean cooking companies, and also meet with government to discuss, some of these same topics that we are talking about today as it pertains to, carbon credits. Yes, I also want to thank the organizers. I think we have been engaging over the past couple of weeks. Thank you so much for organizing such an important event. Of course, I want to thank the fellow panelists, especially those that have already shared their insights into this, and of course to all the participants that have been able to spare their precious time to be able to join us today. I don't think I'll also use the full 15 minutes, but I think that is great, because then it will allow us more time to be able to engage with the different participants and to be able to learn as well. Because we are here today as panelists, doesn't really mean that we know everything. We also still have the opportunity to learn from the different participants. So I think before I go into the question, itself, moderator, I think one of the things that I wanted to really start from is to give a very simple definition of carbon credits from a way that I really understand it as a lay person, rather than from like a very technical and complicated definition. So the way I understand carbon credits is that if, for example, a community in Nigeria protects a forest that would otherwise have been cleared, for charcoal or for firewood, And if households in Nigeria are switching from using firewood and charcoal to clean cooking, as an example of LPG, and so they are using less wood, and so they're avoiding emissions that would have actually been created. So those emissions can be measured. So we can measure how much emissions are actually being avoided. Those emissions can be verified by an independent third party, and those emissions can then be converted into a carbon credit. So a carbon credit is simply a certificate that represents the reduction, the removal, or the avoidance of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. And so those credits can then be sold, to companies. And I think, from our first panelists, mostly, of course, to companies in Europe, but also to governments in Europe and in North America or the United States, and so on. So the community that generated that carbon reduction is supposed to benefit, and through a share of the revenue from those credit sales. So that is, in theory, the question we are here to answer is that, does it actually work in practice, and if not, what are some of the things that need to change? So when this community, deep in Nigeria, is generating these credits, and these credits are verified, get traded through the global carbon markets, and eventually turned into revenues, what is actually the benefit sharing of those revenues at the end of the day? So with that foundation, let me just structure my response around three things that I really believe have actually come out very clearly over the past couple of years, and even more recently as we are transitioning, also, by the way, from what we previously used to call the voluntary carbon market to now compliance markets, which are much more regulated by government, with more government involvement. And so we hope that just that move alone also will help us increase and improve on the transparency of some of the shared value that is being generated. So I think, let me structure, my response around three things. So the first one being that, what is actually a meaningful community benefit? Because, benefit can mean anything, right? So a benefit can range from lots of things. Can range from like actual price reduction in terms of the upfront cost of buying those stoves. It can range from actual rebates in terms of like actual incentives of money that is, paid back to the communities. Then the second thing we want to look at is then how should the revenues be transparently shared? So once you've defined, what those benefits look like, so how should they be then transparently shared? And then third is, I think what is most important is, we cannot ignore the question of at the current prices. So at what price points are we actually able to see that the benefits that are being generated from the carbon credits, or the price that is being paid for the credits that are being generated, is actually sufficient enough to then be able to pay meaningful benefits to the different beneficiaries, but also to be able to be shared or in a very transparent way. So to start with the first point, so I think overall there is a convergence on benefit sharing, not just being a financial transaction. It's something that is more like a multidimensional package. And I think the previous panelists spoke about, some of the aspects in terms of the benefits to the environment, the benefits to socially, in terms of impact on women productivity and the labor hours, time savings, and so on. And then, of course, the third one is that the financial benefit, which is like the actual price point that the communities are able to benefit from. So I think that's, first of all, very important to note that when you're discussing about benefits that are being generated from the carbon markets, you're looking at it from a very diverse point of view. And of course, now with like compliance markets, like some of those benefits can go as far as generating revenue for the government that can still be reinvested into the communities. So in practice, like meaningful community benefit actually means three different things. So the first one being that communities as partners, not passive recipients. So what that really means is that for any carbon project to be registered, one of the early requirements or initial requirements is that the project has to hold a local stakeholder consultation. And I think the previous panelists also spoke to that. So that is really one of the first core foundation of this. So before a carbon project is actually undergoes like development, the foundation of it is actually to make sure that the intended beneficiaries from this project intervention are actually consulted, usually through what is termed as a local stakeholder consultative meeting. And during that meeting, the communities are able to provide feedback. So if you go to a community, for example, and you're proposing a one burner LPG stove, it's during that point that the communities are able to provide feedback and say, we would prefer a two burner stove, or maybe it's to do with the product design. You will have like your preconceived product concepts around standard stove usage and so on. And so during this local stakeholder consultative meeting, that is one of the first things that gets also addressed. So that is sort of like the first one that I wanted to put across. So local communities or local stakeholders must be consulted and have to be consulted as a foundation to any project, carbon project development. The second one has to be what we discussed, that the benefits have to be holistic. So the benefits have to be beyond cash, which is usually in terms of a price reduction. So what most project developers usually do, that if the price of the product was going to be, let's say maybe 500 naira, is that they will take the risk and reduce that price to the community and say maybe instead of paying the 500 naira, the communities can pay 200 or 300 naira, and sort of like they offer that upfront to the communities. But what we are saying is that when you're talking about benefits, it has to be holistic. It has to be more than that. And for some project developers have actually come under fire for really simplifying the benefit to communities to simply mean a reduction, in the price of the product that they are offering. So, but benefits actually have to be beyond that. You have to speak to the community livelihoods. It was very refreshing to see that, within Ghana that we visited last week, we see that majority of the project developers are actually also having production of the clean cook stoves that they are distributing within the local communities. And that is very important, because then now you're not speaking about the price discount, but you're now speaking about the jobs that you're actually able to create for the local communities. You're able to speak about the infrastructure that you're now able to provide for these local communities. So that is, I think, the second aspect of it, is that that the benefits have to be beyond just the reduction in the price of the products. They have to be much more holistic. They have to be linked to where the products are being manufactured, where the products are being produced, and look at it from a much more holistic approach of the jobs that are being created, the raw materials that are being consumed, and so on and so on. And then I think the third one, which the previous speaker spoke to directly, is I'm also a very strong believer that benefit sharing must be gender responsive and inclusive. So one of the aspects that we have observed across different projects is that some project developers have actually made very deliberate efforts to target women and to target communities that are previously or historically excluded with their products. So I think it's also important to bring out that aspect, and like the previous speaker, I think panelists spoke to that at length around how are the women benefiting, how are the children benefiting? Because when you're developing a carbon project, you always have to start by stating your problem statement. And when you read majority of the problem statements from different project developers, it's always stated that the majority of the beneficiaries are going to be women, or the majority of the currently affected population is actually women. So it's also very important that as you now come to discuss benefits, you do not lose that line of thought that you started with during the problem definition, which was that this project was intended to actually benefit women and girls, because they are the ones that suffer the most from the lack of access to clean cooking. So I think as it comes to benefit sharing, that's also very important. We have seen some project developers that actually make direct contribution to women-led campaigns, and so on, even just like outside of the project. So I think that is also another aspect that we always have to keep in mind. So I think that addresses the first aspect of it, of what does actually a meaningful community benefit look like. And so for me, I think those three try to, of course, like summarize it, but it could be much more broader. You could explain it in different terms. You could look at it from a different angle. But all in all, it's really to say that, the benefits from carbon credits are not merely just, cash handouts or price reduction to communities. They are a much more holistic aspect, and you have to look at it from all those three different angles. So the second topic I wanted to talk about was then how should these revenues be transparent?
You have 2 minutes more, then. 2 minutes more.
Okay.
You have 2 minutes more. Right.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so the second aspect is really around then how should the revenues be transparently shared and reinvested into these communities. So I think there has to be a defined formula, and I think some of the governments are working on having a clearly defined formula on how that is the benefits from the carbon credits are transparently shared across government and across communities. So I think now that as we are moving towards a compliance market, that is just something so that is going to come out much more clearly in terms of this is how the benefits have to be shared. So there are different models that are being put across. Some of them include development of community sustainable funds. So you really have like a fund which different carbon project developers can contribute to, and that fund is able to reinvest into the community, and so on. The other aspect around transparency is what we usually call the grievance mechanism. So this is something that has been long-standing within the carbon markets, is that you always have to have a grievance mechanism. People have to have clear ways in which they are able to raise any issues that might be negatively affecting them as a result of the carbon project. And then I think thirdly, and most importantly, within this remaining time, is we have to discuss the issue of price. Because when it comes to carbon credits, at the moment, majority of the projects that are being implemented, obviously, historically are from the voluntary carbon market, and the price points which those projects were able to attract was generally around, $4 to $8 per credit. We of course now are moving towards a compliance market, which should be able to offer a much more higher price point of anywhere from 20 to 25 and so on. And I think why that is very important and why we need to join our voices is that if the carbon credit is trading at $4, then there's a very small piece of cake. Usually here in East Africa, when they're passing the national budget, they like to illustrate it with a cake. So if you have $4 that you have to share across the project developer, across different people, then everyone ends up getting a very tiny fraction of that cake. If then we are able to reinvent our projects under the compliance market, improve the integrity of the projects, and the bilateral articles that now our governments are having with European governments and North American governments, and also under other arrangements, for example, like the COSIA arrangement, where you're able to have a higher price point for your credits, then that also allows us to make sure that whatever we discussed in the first 2 points can actually be, financed, and also that the communities are able to get a meaningful benefit and it doesn't become like a very tiny fraction. And so that's why we see now that majority of the project developers are obviously transitioning into compliance markets. And I think with that transition, we are also going to see, increased benefits for the community because of that higher price. But collectively, we have to ensure that we are actually able to put that into practice, because it is one point to assume that we shall get higher prices from the compliance market. It's another thing to see that work in practice. And I think that's also very important. Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. And back to you.
Thank you very much, Ben. At least we were able to utilize the time well. At least the extra time from others, you were able to use it in a very good way. Thanks a lot. And so that brings us to the end of this particular session. And then we'll go on break for a few minutes and then we'll convene again in a short while. Thank you, everyone. Shit.
Hi, everyone. I was just wondering, I mean, since it's online and all of that, and we don't have a lot of time, I was wondering if, if you have a question, please go ahead and ask the question, and let's see if anyone can answer whilst we convene the next panel session. I see Lizzie saying she has a question. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, please.
Okay, fine. Okay, Lizzie, if you have a question, and I just, as the conversations were being had, I was just thinking about, I mean, since we're talking about how Nigeria's carbon framework can catalyze the clean cooking revolution, definitely affordability, stability, access is very important. And, that's what we're trying to do at FuelTree. Some of us may or may not have read the carbon framework, Nigeria's new carbon framework. Have we read it? Have we tried to study it to see how it affects the work that we're doing? Because, there's, I think that, I mean, from the last speaker, I think that there's definitely an opportunity to put that straight into policy, the opportunity to engage more equitably. So whilst the framework provides guidance, around Article 6 pathways, how partnerships can work, mitigation activity proponents, NCCC can definitely provide guidance around how communities need to be looked after, how communities can benefit from this carbon. I mean, for an entity like ours that facilitates MAPS, which is the mitigation activity proponents, we already have that taken into consideration. We're thinking about affordability through our platform. Our work is building the stability that's needed, and we're providing access through buy now, pay later opportunities and creating an ecosystem of enablers who finance activities upfront, as well as through the creation of micro retailers, where we're prioritizing women and ensuring that, women are there at the forefront or are the majority beneficiaries, and that we're reaching the last mile through USSD, text messaging, WhatsApp, and more accessible ways. So I think that regardless of that, I think that individual entities that are working in clean cooking, especially around developing carbon assets and everything, will definitely benefit from having a framework from the government that guides on exactly how they should go about it, or the things that they should think about. It's very much like the oil and gas and mining, with the oil and gases PIA providing guidance around the HCDT, how communities must be looked after, and in mining, the community grievance mechanism. I mean, there's a process that's around that, but yes, I think that that's important that we do so. But if we're not ready for the next panel session, if you have a question, it says, please open me up to speak. Lizzie's asking, can you open up for Lizzie to speak? Whoever is managing IT at FuelTree. Can Lizzie speak now? Oluyemi Uriofe says, please go ahead, Lizzie. Does anyone else have a question? Chief, can you give me a link to the framework? Sure, we can. What we will do is we'll provide a link to the framework. It's actually on the FuelTree website, is it not? Uriofe, I think we have an analysis as well. Kingsley, is it Adindu? I can't see your name fully. But Kingsley, if you have a question, go ahead, please.
Okay, good afternoon, panelists. Good afternoon, Dr. Bekeme. I am so grateful for this session. I especially loved, I can't remember her name now, the speaker, the panelist that put a gender tone to the conversation today. So I just wanted to chime in that Dr. Bekeme, I know subsequently this conversation is going to continue, so I'm just going to appeal that in subsequent sessions, let's have people who are in charge of who are actually knowledgeable in pricing mechanisms of say the LPG and all that, because I know I was very, very hopeful a couple of years ago when Nigeria launched the decade of gas, even though that has not amounted to anything. But to a large extent, I know adoption is not really the problem in Nigeria, but most of the problem rallies around pricing, affordability, and things like that. And to be honest, like a lot of us know, the social implication of a widespread adoption of clean cooking is beyond what we can actually imagine, especially as it has to do with empowerment of women, because in a lot of communities we know that women are, a lot of time is lost for women, trying to ensure that there's well, I say energy. There's energy availability in the home for cooking, for heating, and some of them, even their businesses, when it comes to riverine communities. So most of my life has been in the Niger Delta. A lot of women that engage in the fish business, they need to preserve, and the way they preserve is to dry these fishes, and the way they dry these fishes to depend on forest resources like the mangroves to dry them, and that is a whole lot, because it not only damages to provide livelihoods, they have to compromise the environment, such precious resource such as the mangrove. So please, subsequently, let's have people that will tell us more about the pricing, because 1,400 for a kg, how many days can that run? Can it, a kg can just last a couple of hours if you need to cook. So please, subsequently, I think would cast the panelists, the nets will be wider than it is, so we can have, a more robust conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm struggling with what you mean by conversations around pricing, because there isn't any fixed price in that sense. So what exactly is your point about pricing? And I do hear the other points that you made, and I do hear your conversation around the decade of gas and the expectation. But when you say pricing, what exactly do you want to know?
So concerning pricing, what I'm actually looking at, so the same way where sometimes there's a clean cooking project adoption where, for example, like the other panelists said, the market price might be something around 500 naira for a one burner stove, and then maybe because of some type of financing, it might be reduced to like 300. It could be like, I don't know if I'll call that a subsidy now.
Yes.
And in communities where we're trying to adopt clean cooking, where we want that adoption to, penetrate really well, LPG plants around there somehow can be subsidized, for a period of time, to help those people afford this energy. Because if they are to go with the open market price, sometimes I've seen projects where a cylinder or a cam gas, for example, is being given to people filled, and once the once the supply runs out, they cannot even refill it. It becomes they just abandon it, and then you go back to ask what is the problem, which now takes us back to what the panelist said, and they'll be like, oh, we cannot transport, for example, 2,000 naira to the closest LPG plant that's like maybe 3 kilometers away, and of course, when we get there, we have to deal with the pricing, 1,400 naira a kg. Oh, I'm just a farmer, I cannot afford that. It's easier to, with 1,000 naira, get firewood in the local market and cook. So,
Yeah.
but there's some type of, if those projects come with localizing some kind of mini LPG plant, which is subsidized around those places to maybe a cluster of communities to serve them, and then prices are subsidized for a particular period to help them adopt this option, then perhaps we can have, record major success in this area.
Thank you. So what you're saying is that you think that there should be socially driven interventions. It's not quite pricing per se. It's really about access for the people that need it, like access to the last mile. And that's what I've been talking about. That's the gap that FuelTree is trying to close. So what we're building is infrastructure that facilitates last mile access. And you're talking about design really of projects. Okay. So subsequently, people buy gas and then they cannot access gas again. And then, we go through this whole notion of fuel switching, because when you don't have continued access to cleaner fuel, then you go back to the fuel that you had access to, which is interesting because, it doesn't actually serve anyone well. If you think about the thermal efficiency of LPG compared to firewood or kerosene, thermal efficiency for LPG is about 55 to 65%, much better compared to kerosene at 35 to 45 and firewood at 10 to 20%. It means that you actually save more money cooking with LPG once you've taken out the upfront cost of acquiring the LPG. And I think it was Ben who talked about it when he said, just providing those subsidies at the beginning is not really assisting the communities. It's about creating structures for them to have businesses. And again, that's something we're trying to do. So we're forming relationships with ecosystem enablers. There are businesses who want to do that. There are financing opportunities possible to build micro retailers in communities in order that there is continued access. So it's not just a one-off. It's not I use it the one time, I don't have access to it. And our infrastructure, our digital infrastructure, our platform, the VCRM, the virtual cylinder recirculation model, actually allows for that, for retailers, whether small or big, to be onboarded and for that process to be tracked so that we also have credible data for whatever carbon revenue that would need to be built from that. Okay, so we just need to be able to scale up statewide, nationally, and to have credible and consistent government backing to make these things happen. So I think that we can have further conversations at the end of the meeting if we have the time, but that we should commence with the next panel session. And, if anybody thinks that, they want to know a little bit more or ask any more questions, we do have a email, hello@FuelTree, to reach us at hello@FuelTree, fuel, FUEL-tree, .com. I almost had an NCDC moment there. I couldn't remember whether it was .com or .co.uk or whatever. So I think we should commence with the next session so that we see if we can cover that. And I do take your feedback in terms of having specific guidance provided for those who don't know. And then for the person who asked about the framework, we do have it on the website for you to access. So thank you all very much. Oriofe, are you carrying on with the introduction?
Yes, thank you very much, Doc.
Hello, can I speak now? Hello, everyone. My name is Lizzie Ibine from Nigerian Women Agro-Allied Farmers Association. We are a farmer group, and 10 years ago, we started this carbon training, carbon intervention, organic agriculture, hoping that one day we will see a light. But currently and now, nobody knows the contact. Like you now said, NCCC, yes, we deal with climate change, but they have not done anything reasonable. Even the people that came to assess our farms that we are doing organic agriculture, there's no feedback. So it's like something in the air. You meet it during the webinars, and after that, we end it there. So how can we, and who is responsible? How can we see even one person or an organization that has benefited in Nigeria? Because we have seen testimonies in meetings across that yes, our organization earns also an amount last year or in the last 5 years that they have been beneficiaries. So where are we in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you. So where are we? I'm not sure where we are, but NCCC has numbers, email addresses. I believe that's how a number of people have reached them. There's a National Clean Cooking Alliance. And, recently NCCC has actually issued eventually a number of letters of approval. So I believe that there's progress, some progress. And a lot of people are at the moment evidently doing things by themselves, finding their partners and all whatnot by themselves. And someone had asked in the meeting, in the chats, whether this is only about LPG. No, it's not about just the switch to LPG. It's just that's what we are focusing on at FuelTree. Sometimes we do have conversations around biochar, biofuels and all of that. It's just no, it's not. It's a transition really to any other clean cooking fuel or device that will work best. So I think we're ready for that next conversation. Oriofe, please step in, and then we can continue to have conversations subsequently. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bekeme. Thank you, Dr. Lola. I beg your pardon. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Please, we would go straight into the next panel session. Mr. Lowry, I'll hand over to you right now, and then we can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oriofe. So moving into the next session. In this session, we're going to focus on the Nigeria's carbon framework and the carbon finance, turning policy into scale for clean cooking. Joining me on this session is I have Mr. Kayode Iyiola, Mr. Dennis Onono, and then Mr. Biodun Kodri. So I'll start with Mr. Kayode Iyiola. He is a credit risk analyst at Carbon Microfinance Bank with a background in computer science and experience spanning customer service, data analysis, project management, internal control, and credit risk. He's focused on using data-driven insight to support better decision-making, stronger operational performance, and sustainable business growth. He will be leading us today on the conversation on the biggest make or break gaps in Nigerian current carbon framework for clean cooking scale, including issues of policy clarity, market confidence, MRV capacity, and other factors critical to long-term success. So welcome, Mr. Iyiola. And then,
good afternoon.
Following him is Mr. Dennis Onono. He is a senior leader in Africa's clean energy space at London Metropolitan University and a clean energy and carbon market expert with over 15 years of experience advancing energy access and climate finance across the continent. His work focuses on clean cooking, last mile distribution, and carbon finance, with a strong commitment to expanding access to affordable clean energy for underserved communities. He'll be leading the conversation today on where carbon finance should deliver value first to make LPG more affordable, whether through upfront cylinder and equipment support, for price reduction, last mile distribution, or customer financing, and why that choice matters for scale and impact. And welcome, Mr. Onono. And then the last person is Mr. Biodun Kodri. He is the founder of Zero Smoke Ventures, a Nigerian clean energy startup focused on providing affordable smokeless biomass stoves. His work is centered on reducing air pollution, lowering household cooking costs, curbing deforestation, and expanding access to clean energy solutions. He has also received the recognition through programs including GE Lagos Garage, the 2025 GET Compass Grants, and the Nigerian Climate Finance and Investment Summit in 2025. He'll be leading today's conversation on how to protect integrity and trust in clean cooking credits, including issues such as additionalities, leakage, and accurate usage of data without making MRV so costly that projects struggle to scale. Yeah. So jumping into that, I will call on Mr. Iyiola. You have 15 minutes. Hello, Mr. Iyiola. Are you there?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, my name is Kayode Iyiola. I'm a credit risk analyst. I work for Carbon Microfinance Bank. And quickly this afternoon, I'll be talking on the biggest make or break in Nigeria's current carbon framework for clean cooking scale, the policy clarity, market confidence, MRV capacity. So quickly, I would like to talk on. So when I was approached and I'm asked to speak about the gaps in Nigeria carbon framework for clean cooking, that question came naturally to me. That Nigeria has a plan, and the goals are bold, but from where I see it, there are specific gaps that if we don't fix, we will stop investors, stop developers, stop carbon financing from ever reaching the average Nigerian woman cooking firewood in Kano, in Benue State, in some part of Plateau State, and the likes. So quickly, I would like to walk us through a few things I consider as gaps So the first thing is policy. Nigeria writes policies, but we don't hold anyone accountable for breaking them. So as a credit risk analyst, the first thing I look into when recommending any investment is the legality certainty. So if I am going to break a clean cooking project that depends on carbon revenues for the next 10 years, I need to know the rules that we put in place when another government comes in place. Because right now, that certainty does not exist in Nigeria. The Nigerian carbon market framework outlined guidelines for voluntary carbon markets, which is a major break. It's a major gap in the carbon financing. Another thing quickly that I also like to compare Nigeria to Ghana. So we are comparing Nigeria to Ghana. Ghana has passed a formal Environmental Protection Act in 2025 that legally established its carbon registry, mandate oversight regulations has already resulted in 70 projects in the pipeline, with 3 projects already authorized for international transfer and clean cooking as a dominant sector. So Nigeria, we are just good with writing documents, not really writing laws. So the continuity is a major factor to consider in carbon financing. So another point I also like to talk about quickly is the investment gap. And I'll be talking from my perspective as a credit analyst. So because in the world of credit, bankable means predictable. So carbon projects in Nigeria have historically struggled with valued risks, which is price volatility and volume risks. Will the project actually produce as many credits as promised? So what actually make a project what make a project bankable now? Number one, we have to consider factors like the pricing, the offtake agreements. Because to build confidence, we need to look for projects with take or pay styles of contracts for carbon credits. So if a project can show a floor price, for example, let's say $10 million, guaranteed by a reputable international buyer, that carbon revenue becomes hard line item in the DSCR calculation. Another challenge, another gap is the MRV challenge. So monitoring, reporting, and verification is the audit of carbon world. So for a credit to be highly integrity, it must be real, it must be real and permanent. So we actually need credible means of moving away from manual ways of doing things. Internet of Things enable tracking. For example, now for a solar mid-grid, it looks like a real-time data from inverters feeding directly from the national registry. So we actually need a third-party verification, which involves validation and verification bodies, physically or remotely, checking that, we have 10,000 cook stoves distributed are actually being used, or we have XYZ numbers distributed not being used. And last thing, I would like to connect carbon financing to scale. So because when we try to utilize carbon financing, we will reduce cost for a very long time. So the magic of carbon financing is its ability to subsidize the end user. For example, at my place of work at Carbon, we look at how revenue can be front loaded or used to lower the levelized cost of energy. For example, now a solar home system company might charge a customer $1 per day to break even. So with carbon credits generating, let's say $1 per unit of energy, the company can reduce the price to $0.8, making it affordable for additional 20% population. So in conclusion, we need to face a complex trap. So if the contracts are being strict, where the financing will be able to go around across several parts of the nation. So in conclusion, by keeping the integrity high, the end users through technology, Nigeria can turn its carbon potential into multi-billionaire reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yola, for that precise presentation. And so we move to the next person down, that's Mr. Onono. For Mr. Onono, the question to you is, if carbon finance is meant to make LPG affordable, where should the value land first? Is it the upfront cylinder and equipment support, the fuel price reduction, the last mile distribution, or customer financing, and why? The floor is yours now. 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you very much for the speakers who've come before me for this insightful session, and thank you for organizing this. Yeah, the question that you've asked is quite pertinent, and each of the previous speakers have touched on it a little bit, and it's on the overarching question of the adoption and where is the biggest impact of carbon finance and where will it move the needle and will affect adoption and also usage of LPG and into last mile, the people who actually need it. So there is no debate in that access to clean cooking, and in this case LPG, is vital for Nigeria. And given that about 19% of households thereabout use LPG, and even with the Nigeria National Clean Cooking Policy targets, 54% of LPG access between now and 2030 is quite ambitious. So if we are sitting now here and saying where will be the biggest impact for carbon finance in closing this gap, given that we have to think about first of all, in the acquisition, and then the continuous usage of the fuel, and then there are also other challenges that need to be sorted out in terms of access to the fuel, which is infrastructure and access to the last mile. So what we've seen and evidence that has been shown over with the different project developers who've been successful in utilizing carbon access and carbon finance in scaling clean cooking, LPG and other sorts of clean cooking technologies, be it improved cook stoves or electric cooking or LPG, and also in the different countries, is solving the adoption problem, which is saying, for example, that the people who actually need this project technology and intervention most do not have the upfront money to get access to it. And then, so how do you deploy such? How do you solve for such problem? And what you've seen is the most sustainable and scalable, reliable solution and way is subsidizing and deploying using carbon finance to subsidize the upfront cost. So now you're creating the adoption. Now you are solving for the adoption. So within that is essentially saying that someone who otherwise will be earning, let's say, $2 or anything beyond that, is getting access to purchase that I would say rather expensive hardware, which will be the cooking table and also the gas cylinder. And then now, once you solve for that, you're creating the opportunity to start generating the carbon credits. Because the smaller they are, you are, and you're not solving for their the first problem where that you can solve for the adoption, and it is been proven to be scalable, reliable, and sustainable, and a bit robust, is solving at the acquisition stage, if a product or a gas cylinder and the hardware was costing X amount, carbon finance can come to subsidize it to the tune of 60 or 40% in some cases, depending on the business model and the financial model for the different project developers. And then now the question is, once you're solving for that, is how do you now maintain that with the fuel usage? So deploying, and using carbon finance for fuel is quite risky in the sense that given that one carbon markets and the sector can be a bit volatile, different depending, let's say, on the market dips or maybe I would say methodology changes, and even what we can say now in this case for LPG is if there is a disruption in the market and you've hedged your pricing on consistent fuel and you've subsidized that, if there is a small change, then it means you consistently have to be adjusting your fuel prices, and this is creating a disruption right to the last mile end user who are not used to this. So most of these end users at the village, they're used to, they need the affordability to get access, and then once you solve for that, the pricing for the refueling has to be relatively consistent. So you cannot say this month it's this amount of naira, and then this month is this amount of naira based on the different challenges that you're facing in the market. So that in itself is quite, it's not sustainable. And for projects that will want to do that, and there are good examples of projects that have tried to subsidize on the fuel side also, that have faced a lot of challenge in making their projects viable and consequently reducing the impact of what the carbon finance will have. So that in itself means that, with the carbon finance and also working with the project developers is to solve and to making sure that their unit economics are quite sound and they're steady. So while you're deploying that, and that will touch into the last part, which will be on the distribution and the last mile reach, it's at the heart of it is an infrastructure problem. And someone has mentioned here is we can solve for that, but that is where the partnership on the different stakeholders is quite useful. This is an expensive, fuel. It is volatile and it's also dangerous. So the infrastructure has to be the government, the national and the local government. We will need to work together to provide this infrastructure for the distribution of the fuel and storage, and also we can also from the project and also the storage in the different, I would say, affordable units. So you should not assume that because in an urban center people would want access to a 12.5 kilogram cylinder, that in the village people would want to use a 12.5 kilogram cylinder. So innovation in access and innovation in how the business model is with the infrastructure is also key. There are some players who are giving maybe end users the ability to pay per use. So you don't need to pay to buy the whole cylinder. You only pay for what you use. And if you, let's say, if you pay for, and it's not on a daily basis, it's exactly what you use and is what you pay for. So I would say the biggest impact that we've seen is carbon finance is the biggest impact is solving the adoption problem. So once by subsidizing the upfront cost, then from there you can work with the business model and the different stakeholders in solving the distribution and access problem. And then eventually also carbon, and there are different players who've been very, I would say, innovative in this way, is also rewarding incentives per use. So the carbon, one side you're solving the adoption problem, but also incentivizing usage. So for example, I can say to an end user that if you use at least for the fuel, or if you refuel for 3 days a week, then the fourth day they will be free, which will be subsidized on the carbon. So that is very innovative. You're solving on two fronts, but not on the pricing. So you're incentivizing at least on the fuel is not on the pricing, but on the upfront is specifically on the pricing. And the pricing on the fuel is because usage, the higher the usage, the more you're generating the credits. And on the last mile is essentially, it has to be an infrastructure problem that needs to be solved. Access to the roads, access to safekeeping of this. What is those unit of I would say cylinders that need to be deployed, especially in the last mile. So these are multi-layer, I would say, solutions to the to different problems. But the biggest impact, and we know for sure with evidence played, is carbon financing can solve at least sustainably the upfront problem. Then the business models can work with, for example, different pay-go, for example, models or pay-per-use models, which is being adopted on electric cooking with the different players, can now start solving more of the fuel usage. Yeah, and definitely, ultimately, it's an infrastructure problem for last mile and business modeling. But I mean, at the end of it all, it's an ecosystem. That's why we have the different players here. Carbon finance is not a magic wand. It has to work in an ecosystem that supports it, from policy to infrastructure to the rest of the things. Yeah, that is it from my side.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And I think on that platform, I will move to Mr. Quadri. Mr. Quadri.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. So for you, the question is, how do we protect integrity and trust in clean cooking credits, especially the additionalities, the leakage, accurate user data, without making MRV so expensive such that the project may not be able to scale thereafter? So the floor is yours. 15 minutes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, co-panelists. I thank you for this opportunity. This program is a laudable one that the world needs, especially in Africa now. So I have a presentation to share, so which make my presentation seamless. I'll go ahead and doing that now. So the topic is financing the future, scaling high integrity clean cooking in Nigeria. So good afternoon once again, everyone. My name is Abiodun Kodri. I'm the founder of Zero Smoke Ventures. We focus on developing affordable smokeless cooking solution that reduces pollution, improve health, and promotes sustainability living across underserved community. So the topic for today is about making sure financing that scaling high integrity, because the investors want to make sure that the investment put into clean cooking is truly verifiable. So, and that is what this topic I will share. So, we are standing at historic crossroad for Nigerian energy sector. With the 2026 activation of our clean, our national carbon market, we finally have the tool to solve the biggest barrier in clean cooking affordability. So my vision today is simple. We aren't just here to talk about carbon credit. We already have the objective, but we are here to discuss how we use this credit to provide customer finance that make clean cooking a right, not a luxury for every home in Nigeria. To understand how a customer finance, you must first look at the where. Nigeria has officially moved from climate pledge to a market with the 2026 ratification of NCMAP. Now we have a national carbon credit that acts as the single source of truth. The registry prevents double counting and ensures that every credit generated by clean cooking solution is unique and verifiable. For us as a developer, this framework isn't just a set of rules, it is the bankability that allows us to attract the capital needed to lower price for our customer. So why is customer finance our primary focus in Nigeria? The desire for clean cooking is high, but the entry fee, the upfront cost of the stove and fuel is often too steep for the average family. At the Zero Smoke, we don't see carbon credit as just a corporate asset. We see them as a financial bridge. By pre-agreed credit, we can slash the cost upfront for the mother indication. We are also turning climate finance into a direct consumer discount, making the transition to clean energy as affordable and accessible as buying airtime. To scale customer finance in Nigeria, we must protect investor trust without the high cost of manual oversighting. The industry solution is digital trust, built on 3 pillars. Additionality. Providing carbon finance is the only engine making clean cooking affordable for the masses, as we all know. So the second one is leakage prevention, moving beyond distribution to ensure the permanent displacement of wood and charcoal, which is common in our community. So in the hinterland, people are still using charcoal and firewood to cook. So most of them don't have access to LPG as a result of last mile disruption. So the other one is accurate usage of data, recognizing that to reach millions, we must move beyond today's manual paper survey. The solution by transition to automated digital MRV, that is monitoring, reporting, and verification. We provide the pinpoint accuracy investor demand while slashing the verification costs that hold project back. This is how we move from manual piloting to bankable national scale clean cooking assets. So to scale customer finance in Nigeria, you must protect investor trust with the high cost of manual oversight. The industry solution is digital trust, built on 3 pillars. Additionality, proving carbon finance is the only engine making clean cooking affordable for the masses. Leakage prevention, moving beyond distribution to ensure that permanent displacement of wood and charcoal through conservative science-based baseline. Accurate data usage, which I think I mentioned earlier, recognizing that to reach millions, we must move beyond today's manual paper survey. So the solution, by transition to automated digital MRV, we provide the pinpoint accuracy investor demand while slashing the verification costs that hold project back. This is how we move from manual piloting. I think I've said that earlier. So to solve the dilemma of high cost versus high integrity, the answer is digitalization. And that's what FuelTree, I believe that's what FuelTree is providing. By following the VCRM model championed by FuelTree, we treated fuel usage like mobile airtime. Every time a customer uses a clean cooking solution, a digital footprint is created. The digital MRV, it replaces expensive, slow and error-prone manual survey with digital trust. For investors, this means 100% transparency for us. It means we can scale to millions of households without the massive overhead of traditional carbon auditing. So, uh, how how does this all become bankable? It is simple cycle of value because digital MRV provides such high integrity data, reducing the risks for investors. They aren't guessing the impact, they are seeing it in a real time on a dashboard. Investors investing in carbon credit, they want a verified data that that can be they can have access to either on their system or on their smartphone. So also, high trust data allows premium pricing for carbon credit. Then take carbon demand dividend, reinvest it directly back into the customer pocket, lowering the upfront cost of clean cooking. This creates a sustainable loop where climate finance directly fuel household additionality and carbon inclusion. So, as I conclude, I will look at the big picture. Let us look at the big picture. Our goal is ambitious. More than 8 million households by 2030. This is sound a mountain, but it's achievable with the carbon framework as our foundation and digital MRV as our engine. It is entirely possible. We have the policy, we have the technology now. We need a partnership. We are ready to turn this high level climate pledge into real affordable progress for Nigeria modern indication. So thank you everyone. These are the little opinion I wish to share on clean cooking solution as the topic says.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kodri, for your time, and thanks to all the speaker for this session. And thanks for your time. And then I think we can move now to question and answer. So, Oriofe, I will hand over this to you to moderate, and push from your end.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all our speakers for the insightful session. So far, most of the questions have been answered. I'm just going to read through any other ones that, because we were answering them also behind. So I'm just going to read through any other ones that we have. Okay, this person says, is it possible to get a link to access the research you did, Mr. Johnson? I don't know if Mr. Jayola is still on the call. The person wants to understand more about carbon credits, how feasible it is in Nigeria to set up, which organizations can one connect with to know more. Mr. Johnson, please, are you still on the call? Okay, I don't think he's on the call, so we would get back to you on that. I can see somebody's hand raised. Please, can we give the person access to speak?
I just wanted to say before the person speaks, I mean, if we're talking about companies that have been successfully doing it for years, they're quite a number. And I'm sure that some of them are here. CCNA, for instance, with its partner entity SME Fund, CCNA Carbon Climate Network, CCNA Africa, basically, CCN Africa. They've been doing it for over 15 years, have been trading credits, have dealt with international players. It's just, our own government is now decisively coming on board. So I'm sure that if you are one of those people who's also actually been doing it for a long time, please feel free to indicate in the chat. I think that there's always opportunity for networking with these kinds of forums, and we're happy to hear more. So who was going to speak? Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate the best, the high performing work, Madam Chief Mrs. Dr. Ekeme is performing. Yes, in the last presentation we had late last year, I raised an issue. Of course, I was unable to speak. I presented it, and I'm happy you have responded. That because me, I believe in options A, B, C. I believe in option A, B, C. In view of the high price of the gas in the circulation, I suggested electrical stuff, and the response I got, I'm satisfied that there's no energy. And of course, until the energy becomes stable, before we can begin to think in that direction. Yes, by virtue of my research and my knowledge in chemistry, I also believe that in addition to LPG, yes, because the gases that we use all along, the methane for lighting, the ethane for wedding, propane and butane for cooking. Propane and butane are mostly used for cooking, and that is carbon 3 and carbon 4. Now, the source, because during my master research, before I started my PhD, I work on solid fuel, and when I was trying to source for various forms of energy, sources of energy, I came to across another form of getting some of these gases, and that is the sockaway. The sockaway, whereby a system, a pipe, will be introduced into the sockaway, link into a system that contains hydrogen sulfide solution for cleaning up the gas, because the gas that will be coming up, the butane, propane, or whatever that is coming from the sockaway, is not going to be very clean. So there will be a need for us to clean it. So you pass it through hydrogen sulfide, and from that system.
Is it just me or we stopped hearing him?
What? Hello?
Stopped hearing you, sir.
What do you say?
We stopped hearing you for a few seconds.
Okay, sorry. I was saying that we can source for some of these gases. The gases that are used for cooking are mainly propane and butane gases that are carbon 3 and carbon 4. Apart from the major sources, which is the LPG, and that is very clean. Some of these gases can also be sourced for in our various homes directly from the sockaway. Experimentally, you pipe the sockaway, the gas that is coming might not be very clean, then it has to be passed into a container containing hydrogen sulfide. And then the hydrogen sulfide will clean up the gas, and the gas that goes into the cylinder is pure propane or butane gas, which can be used for cooking. So because I could see that the major challenge in this project now is the cost of the LPG. So we should start thinking in that directions, so that if we can get no, if there's a device that individual can buy and plug to their sockaway and be getting neat gases, yes, I think the problem is solved. So that will now force the cost of LPG to come down, because what I'm seeing now is what I'm taught in the economics: monopoly. There's no any other sources apart from petroleum, and that is why the price is getting rise and rise on daily basis. And well, I just hope this project will be able to find an everlasting solution. But at least you are in the right directions, and I say kudos to you. Well done, madam. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so very much, sir. I think that you've raised a very valid point now. And the truth is that when it comes to clean cooking and other energy solutions, it's all about the energy mix. I don't think that there's just the one way to go. There are multiple avenues, and you've spoken about one. If you have a solution around that, if you're training people, please feel free to share. Someone was asking, how do we communicate this to the rural dwellers? I think it's very important that people have the opportunity to clean cooking, regardless of what form. it comes in. So thank you for your contribution. Was there any other question or comment?
Yes, somebody asked if they could get the recording. So it will be uploaded on YouTube and you'd have access to it.
So what we can do subsequently is share an email with everyone who attended with the link to the recording, the link to the carbon market framework, and the analysis that we had done. Anything else that was asked?
No, that's all.
I don't believe that there was. Okay. So yes, we may not be there, but we're having regular conversations. Yeah, I think that it's important that we have this conversation and filling any more questions for our speakers and for us. I just want to say thank you to everyone, to our esteemed panelists, and particularly to you, Mr. Olari, for the extended time that you gave to us. I was pleasantly surprised to see Mr. Quadri actually build his case study around what we're doing with the future with Futures VCRM. Thank you very much, sir, for that. And I just want to say that what is clear from today's conversation is that we're not just having a conversation about energy anymore. It's a conversation about human dignity, opportunity, and future for our communities. And we're basically sitting on a powerful intersection of data, the need for strong policy and enforcement, finance and innovation. And if we align these deliberately, we can move millions of households from risk, poverty to safety, from inefficiency to productivity, and from exclusion to participation. But I strongly believe that success will not be defined by carbon credits alone. It will be defined by healthier families, empowered women, thriving local economies, and systems that people trust and can adopt at scale. And the last suggestion is one of such examples. It just shows that there's opportunity for more people, not just entrepreneurs, but people who have the academic backgrounds to be able to support this clean cooking scale that we're looking at. The opportunity before us is not just incremental, it is transformational. And I strongly believe that now is the time to move from discussion to execution, from running small pilots to scale, and from intention to impact. And I think that there's opportunity to continue to educate ourselves. There's a lot of information out there. What with governments in this part of the world taking it a bit more slowly to get things moving, I think that I know that with the internet, there's a lot more information at our fingertips, and we should take advantage of it and just literally take action. So thank you all so very much for being a part of it. We hope that we continue to have these conversations. We'll have a couple more webinars through the course of the year, and we expect to see you there. All right, take care then, everyone, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your day too.
Yeah. So before we go, please, can the panelists please turn on their videos just for like a group photograph, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yemi. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Have a great evening.